With that, I'll just begin the talk of the day here. I'd love to say good morning again to everyone, encouraging you to share where you're joining us from all over the world, University of Glasgow, Pakistan, College of New Jersey, just wonderful variety and distribution. We see some familiar faces. Um, and I would love to welcome you on behalf of Edvisor. My name is GP Laborde. I am the Director of Product and Learning here. I'd love to give you a little introduction. Just a little table setting here. We are recording, and so if you've registered, you will get this recording as a follow-up. I'd love to encourage people to not only share what they're thinking throughout the course of the proceedings, but also to ask specific questions in the Q&A. We will be doing a live workshop, of course, and so all of those questions will help us to make sure that we're addressing things that are important to you. A quick word on me. Um, I'm a lifelong and enthusiastic educator from a number of different levels. I taught both in secondary schools at high schools and then also in college. My first job was actually as a wilderness EMT doing experiential learning trips in the mountains. Susan, I mentioned anything mountain related is something I quite love. Um, and Also, my degree is in art history, so I curated exhibitions for museums and really think about that sort of live in-person experience of learning as some of the most important parts of connecting with students. I did my PhD at Stanford in art history in the digital humanities and worked for the vice provost of teaching and learning to improve teaching across the university. So in my role at Edvisor, where I've been working since managing an undergrad research program at Stanford, really just focused on building educational tools and products that can help us to make sure that we're delivering the best experiences to students. And so that brings us to the topic of the day, which is thinking about assessment design. And this falls, of course, right before the return to school. We have some really interesting research and stats to share with you on the topic, but suffice to say, with classes starting in a few weeks and faculty everywhere facing the same question about whether their assignments are prepared for the stress testing that they will endure as students use AI for every possible opportunity, we need to really think about what we're bringing to the table for them and how we can change our processes in order to adapt to the new realities. In coursework last year, this is a higher ed student voice survey. They found 85% of students are using AI in some way. Many of them, up 10 ticks from 2 years ago, are actually using AI generated text in their submitted work. And
Hmm.
so that brings us to the conversation that we're going to have with Susan. And I would love for her to introduce herself after I give you a little bit of her bio. But she's really the ideal person to join us to talk about how we can redesign assessments for the AI era. She's an associate professor of English at Delaware County Community College and a national consultant for the American Association of Colleges and Universities for AI instruction in the classes in the college classroom. Um, we have some exciting recent publications that she'll tell us about later, but Susan, I just wanted to introduce you so you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and your
Yes.
journey into teaching with AI.
So my humanities background is similar to GP's, not as prestigious, but my doctorate's in Victorian literature. And so again, about as non-AI as you can get, but I have the privilege as my father was a computer science professor. So I kind of grew up with technology evolving in the background, and I'll date myself. It started with the computer with the floppy disks to the CD-ROM, dial-up, Ethernet, wireless. And when I started teaching, oh my gosh, as a graduate student 20 years ago, I found I was helping students with technological literacy as much as I was how do you write a personal narrative? How do you evaluate an online source? How to not send me an email that says, Yo, Suze, what I missed? Like, what is, electronic messaging etiquette? How to use databases. And so that's always been part of composition as I taught it. And I'm sure, like many people here, about 2 years ago, I started getting the influx of, whoa, this is not my students' writing. This is like very dry, graduate level writing about complex texts we haven't even read and learned more about AI. I'm very lucky that, I was able to go straight to dad, siblings, ask them questions about the IT stuff that seemed a little bit beyond me. And my beholden spouse was happy to calculate that over the past 2.5 years, I've spent about 1,000 hours just reading, listening to podcasts. A couple of my colleagues from Delaware County are here. They know I get kind of singularly focused, and I've been very interested in this topic, how it's impacting our students. Just like GP mentioned his survey, I surveyed our students and found that this was 2 years ago. Most of them were arriving having been taught either AI is always cheating or heard absolutely nothing in high school. And then the stats that you mentioned, I know Inside Higher Ed showed 88% of them are now using AI in their studies, and 25% share they're using it to outsource their learning. And we can talk more about why they feel the pressure to do that. But I just felt beholden, like I want their actual writing. How can I help them in this moment? And also as a community college instructor, my students are very invested in improving their career opportunities. And 66%, I think, was the Microsoft LinkedIn study 2 years ago. This is again 2 years ago, of all hiring, employers from nursing to teaching to manufacturing that wanted students to arrive with AI skills. So that's when I started finding ways, how can I bring AI into the process where they preserve their voice? They don't let it write for them. They don't let it think for them. It's just a tool, like a calculator would be in a math class. It's part of the process, but it should never replace you. And it just kind of started with that. I run a grant program at our college. I'm very lucky they funded, it's called Bridging the AI Gap, where I provide our students with different platforms to test out different technologies, create spaces for faculty come together and share. And I've been tracking how this is impacting my students overall. The biggest thing is the AI plagiarism has disappeared, which has been the biggest win. Student evaluations have gone up. They're engaging with Canvas, which is our LMS, more since I've weaved this into my asynchronous classes. So it's been a learning process. And I always say, if anyone tells you they have it completely figured out, don't trust them. Because we're all learning as these technologies evolve and what's expected from our students evolve. But that's kind of what led me here. Again, just I became a consultant for the AAC&U. I presented at over 25 universities and colleges, just from foundation, it's like what is AI, presenting to faculty, to how can we weave it in ethically. And before we jump in, I do want to clarify, I would never tell a faculty member to integrate AI if they don't want to. I just think we just all need to be aware that it exists and it impacts students. And that's really what today is about.
Yeah. And one of the things that I really appreciate about us and our conversation ahead of time, Susan, is that uh, being really sensitive to where it's appropriate to bring AI into assessments and also recognizing where it might actually be the best course of action to say, no, we're going to do live in person Viva vocal assessments, or maybe we return to Blue Books, or there are
Mm-hmm.
so many other modalities that we can say this is the appropriate thing for this particular assignment for this particular class. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And if anyone else is a composition professor, I recommend looking up Lily Abdal. She has a whole movement of returning to writing in the classroom, keeping technology out. And if you're teaching in person, that works. The stuff she's doing is really brilliant.
excellent. Um, okay, I would love to introduce a little bit of the statistics just to move our conversation forward. So,
Yeah.
to your point, the difference between this year, this coming fall, and last year and the year before that is so extreme. We know that there are tools that are coming out from some of the frontier labs that are being introduced to students. They're invited to use their university subscription to Gemini or ChatGPT. And so professors really have to think about how that access and the institutional policies intersect with the way that they're designing their classes. And just around student use, one of the really interesting things that I've been seeing come up is students are very wary of the kinds of false accusations that are proliferating right now with the use of different detection tools and so forth. There was a PackBack survey from just January of this year that said 75% of students worry about being wrongly accused of AI, and
Yeah.
only about 20% of them endorse AI detection. More than half want ethical education on how to use it rather than detection tools. And that's from an Inside Higher Ed Student
Yeah.
Voice survey from last year.
Yeah,
Um,
I really recommend that folks here, if your college has an AI detector, we have a Pangram subscription, and I'm not anti it, but it can't be the whole story. Run part of your master's thesis or your dissertation through, just some of these detectors, they flag things that you're like, no, I wrote that 20 years ago. Like, that's
yes.
not it. I've had a lot of students who are second language learners or neurodivergent, and they frame sentences differently and they get flagged. And it can just create so much anxiety. And I've had there's if you go to TikTok and watch reels, it's like you might have written your paper, but use this humanizer to make sure it doesn't get flagged. So it's
Hmm.
just this really bizarre moment when the question of where's the writer's voice, it leads to a lot of anxiety for students and faculty.
Susan, would you like to put the name of the English professor you mentioned in the chat? You are
Yes,
way
I did.
ahead of me.
Was that,
Great.
yeah, and you could find her on LinkedIn, and she has a wonderful Substack as well. And then I'll share.
Excellent.
This is yeah.
Now, as we begin to move into towards the workshop part of it, and we'll have some links for all of you to open up on your own computers and to use your own assignments there. I also wanted to just take a quick moment to invite people to share some assignments that they want us to workshop live. And we've reached out ahead of time for to a few faculty members who have actually shared those with us. And so, if people want to drop sort of whatever it is, the generic assignment that they want to explore into the chat. I'm also putting my email in there right now, so you can just send me a message directly if you want to do it that way. We would love to make this a live and practical experience for as many of you as possible. So, with that, let me just share a quick poll that folks can feel free to open up here. We're just trying to get a sense of where people are in their redesign process. It can be a long one, and in point of fact, I think that it's really wonderful to think of this as a not as a one-time kind of renovation of your syllabi, but really as a continual process of responding to students, seeing how things develop in the class, and then iterating as each semester
Mhm.
and each year goes by. Um, Brilliant.
And as JP pulls that up, sorry, GP, I will say to be gentle with yourselves because I think that what we're lacking most as faculty as a resource is time. So I did this slowly. I would say choose one assignment. If that's all you can do for the fall, that's awesome. That you can slow down and redesign and assess and see how that might inform others. Just because I've talked to many faculty that the anxiety of, okay, in what time am I supposed to redesign my whole curriculum and ensure it adheres to all course goals? So, yeah, today will be a fun chance to kind of play and explore different ways to do that. And even just test driving one in the fall will be a really useful.
Brilliant. With no further ado, let me pull up our slides so we can share these with you. And one of the other reasons it's really nice to share this is that Susan has some wonderful publications that I'm really glad to celebrate in the beginning of this deck. Susan, do you want to tell us about these volumes and your contributions there?
Sure. Patrick Dempsey is a great AI scholar that runs Second Draft Labs. And we had a book come out about 9 months ago called What Education Becomes. And it's 12 different people really focused on AI and education. And we all have very different topics, views, approaches. And it's been exciting to hear from people like even Australia and South Africa who've read it and gotten different glimpses from things. I'm a co-author with Patrick Winkle and Jason Gulia, who are very present in this space, a book coming out in September next month called Transparency and Reflection. We are all pro AI integration, but we have very different views on how the student shares that process. Patrick thinks they shouldn't have to. So we've written chapters defending our point. And my favorite part is he gave us an opportunity to kind of tear into each other's arguments, which is something that I find you don't often see in academic texts. It's always kind of one direction, and this is four completely different approaches that we defend. And some of the places I've published Solutions Review, EdSurge, I have an article coming out in the Chronicle of Higher Ed later this week, which is about this kind of vicious cycle of faculty, of institutions paying for AI detectors and students paying for humanizers. And then we look at timestamps and now they can pay for autotypers. And just how do we kind of step away from this hamster wheel, which to be clear, faculty and students were usually not have lots of a disposable income to be paying for these tools. Sometimes our institutions do, but then, like undetectable is $5 a month for students. That's really led me to this approach of, all right, how can we scaffold assignments to show the learning to kind of move away from the policing? But yeah, I have a website and I'm very excited that I get to continue this work. I'm going to be the faculty fellow for AI at my institution come fall.
Well deserved. Um, So tell us about this process. We've got a lot of different components that are coming together. Like how do you think about taking an assignment that might not have been AI native to begin and then retrofitting it
Right.
for this new regime?
This new moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Comp One, all of us have taken it at some point in our career. It's that English composition class you take as a freshman. And of course, that's where we encountered so much of the AI generated essays about 2.5 years ago. And I thought, how can I slow it down? So what students do is they choose an issue in the education system, be it, college, public school, and we've done readings about it, class discussions, they brainstorm it. I have a handout where they kind of fill out their evidence. I have one of the assignments, and this is asynchronous or in person. Let's go to the databases. I want you to find a source through our particular database that you think serves what you want to do. Tell me why, show me some of the quotes that's relevant, that it will be relevant. My favorite, if in a moment GP wouldn't mind hitting play, is to have them go interview someone that has something
Okay.
to do with that topic. Yeah,
Are you
I'll just let it go
familiar
for a few
with
seconds.
unequal education and how do you feel about the public school system today? Yes. I feel like growing up, I grew up in Philly. I was born in Philly. And so I see different forms of like unequal education depending on what area of Philly you're from. For example, if you're from South Philly, the
We
way
can
like the
pause it.
access to the
Um, But the beautiful part of that is, yeah, it took more time. I've started doing less major papers, but I got to listen to their wonderful interviews with their classmates. And that topic took the student in the direction to look at different funding in different districts around Philadelphia. Like, for example, Radnor, is one of the wealthier districts. They spend like $30,000 a student, where certain areas in Philly spend nine. And it was that interview that took her into that, feeling of I want to explore this injustice and the why. So again, it's just about finding ways to make it more visible. What's the student process?
Brilliant.
And I will share that half of the paper's grade is based on the process. So 50% is just these steps. And then the other 50% is, of course, the essay, which they can revise.
I love this model, and I do think that this is something that, in many different levels of post-secondary instruction, that process emphasis is something actually that I think we can productively return to. There are so many benefits of smaller formative assessments throughout, a learning journey, rather than the more kind of summative big final project that so many of us have gravitated towards at the college level. This is a really lovely testimonial from one of your students. Would you like to intro it and then I'll press play?
Sure. This is Isabel Sanchez Guerrero, and English is her second language. She was in Honduras studying law when she had the opportunity to come to the US. And this was her first semester at our college, and she was still becoming comfortable with the language. And on top of that, I was introducing AI into the curriculum, and I asked her if she would mind sharing what she thought about that process.
Hi everyone, I'm Isabel. Using AI as a tool in my English 100 class was one of the most interesting and insightful experience that I ever had in college. I think AI is an amazing and powerful tool, but the only problem is sometimes we don't use it properly because maybe we don't know how to use it properly. In my English 100 class, Professor Wright focused in teaching us how to use it responsibly and how to take advantage of it to improve our work instead of letting AI to do it for us. But English is not my first language, so AI really helped me to express myself better in English, to organize my ideas, and even to improve my grammar. In the job market, knowing how to use AI tools and so forth is one of the most in-demand skills. That's why I believe that colleges and professors need to start using AI in classrooms so we can learn how to use it properly and responsibly so we can be prepared for the future, for our future jobs. Professor Ray would always encourage our critical thinking. She always will tell us AI is going to give you a lot of information, but it's up to you what you're going to use, because we need to make sure that our final work is going to reflect our own ideas and what we really think. So it's not about AI doing my job, but it's about helping me to come up with my own ideas, helping me to brainstorm. So overall, I had a really good experience using AI in this class because I got the opportunity to learn actually how to use it. So I really hope that in the future more professors start using AI in the classroom, because I do believe that we need it, because we need to be prepared for the future. Thank you.
I miss her already. But one of the things we did, like she mentioned, grammar. So obviously, when you're teaching a diverse classroom, especially at a community college, you have some students that are writing at graduate level school, writing style, some who are second language speakers. So instead of focusing on, okay, everyone, today we're going to do fragments, I would tell the students, I gave you feedback, choose one writing issue I said you needed to work on, and I gave them a prompt where AI would build a quiz for them based on that, and they could choose the topic they wanted it to be about, whether it was like, K-pop demon hunters or the Philadelphia Eagles. They would answer the questions and then evaluate how well that helped them practice that particular skill. And that was a really useful exercise we did this semester.
That's great. One thing I'll add for those faculty members who are interested in actually doing live studies, for their own research, we have a lot of faculty partners that we do this kind of work with too. And one of them actually found in a paper published last year, one that we're building on with a forthcoming study this fall, is introducing those kinds of let's just say stress testing of the AI output from students and
Mhm.
pairing that with statements about the ethics and honor code that students agree to and they want to live up to had a measurable effect on the amount of AI misuse in the as one might expect it would. But sort of hard data that's beginning to come in to say if we invite students to be more of co-designers in these kinds of assessments, to invite them to look at and critique AI, then they're much more mindful of the way that they tend to use it. Um, with no further ado, Susan, I would love to encourage us to open up these wonderful tools that you've built. Susan has two, and I'll have one that I'll share after that. But this is an example of adding friction to assessments using AI. So if people want to, and I suppose, Susan, I will just
Yeah.
um,
So there's
add
two
this to the
chatbots.
chat as well.
Awesome. There's one that's how to add friction with AI. So if you wanted to bring AI into the curriculum, like I had students create the grammar quiz and then share that process with me and then reflect on it. And the other chatbot has absolutely no AI. So if you don't want AI in your curriculum, which is totally legitimate and sometimes the correct choice, it's just ideas to kind of do like what I did with my paper about education, to unpack it. And so as soon as you log in, and again, you can use it for free on either ChatGPT or Boodlebox. You do need to create an account, but you do not need to pay a dime. They're both, free bots. You can just say hi, and it'll say, "Okay, what are you teaching? How many students? Can you upload your assignment?" It will tell you the point of productive friction and start saying, "Okay, what are you measuring most here?" And this can be any kind of assessment. Like I'm going to show you one with a biology lab report assignment. Or just how can you slow it down to show the thinking? Again, to try to take that outsourcing that's being so advertised to our students out of the process.
Now, Susan, would you like to show us that live, or do you want me to play the video that was
Yeah, could you play the video? Just like probably because I don't want everyone to
gladly?
have to watch it buffer because I will
Sure.
be very. It's not going to happen as fast as it does in the video. I cut out the buffering because it's thinking as it should, going
Yes.
through the documents. Yeah. And if anyone's interested, I'm actually doing a pilot with Boodlebox. I'm not getting any money from them, to be clear. But a lot of people do like that platform because it's FERPA compliant. It doesn't share data that students upload. So here's one of my
Very,
research paper assignments. I'm uploading it to the add friction. And so it gave the definition, which I won't read, but it says, okay, which thinking skills matter most here? Evaluating sources, developing persuasive arguments, specific audience. And so I was very clear. I'm really focusing on persuasive writing and source evaluation. And then, it's going to give you all this feedback. I'm just going to go to the bold. It's like, if we integrate AI in this assignment, would you rather it join the student as a competent research assistant? To give them kind of a bad draft of this, they need to grade and rethink, or a counter argument generator, which I find useful because it helps students kind of see the flaws in their flat thesis statements, their first draft. I said counter argument generator. And it goes through what that could do for the students. It could help them recognize a straw man objection, check out opposing claims and ensure they're accurate, distinguish the AI's invented framing, and it goes forth. And it's going to ask you more specifics, like, is this for an asynchronous online class? Is this for an in-person class? It'll get into the nitty gritty of how much grading are you available to do and how many students do you have. So again, it's just meant to be a starting place if you're looking at an assignment like, how do I possibly unpack this? And if you keep talking to it, it will get into ways that students might be tempted to outsource it. So again, if I just give them a 3-page description of a research paper, they can plug that into ChatGPT and it will write it. But it's going to recommend smaller fragments where you can integrate AI into the process. One thing I'll briefly note that with my students, and again, it's a comp class, I have them create a Google Doc week one of class called the AI Transparency Journal. Every time they engage with AI, they date it, they paste the whole transcript and just give me a couple sentences of how they think that went. So if I created a chat bot or just a prompt for them for AI to create a counter argument, they would have the conversation, they would post it to the transparency journal, and that would be the assignment and reflecting. So
Excellent.
I can answer any questions about this, but again, it's not meant to create it for you. It'll give you suggestions and walk you through how you might want to do this with AI.
Um, let's also go to the add friction to assessments without AI. And
Yes.
as we said at the beginning, there are certainly moments where we want to take the opportunity to teach students about how to use this in the context of our own subject matter. And then there are
Mm-hmm.
other opportunities where we say we want to preserve, as an art historian, there's one assignment that we often give to students that says you need to sit in front of a work of art with no phone or no computer for
Oh,
an
that's
hour
great.
in a museum and just journal your notes on pen and paper. Clearly there are things that we hold dear to each of our disciplines that we don't want to let go of. And so this is a great example of how to introduce friction to assessments without integrating AI into that process.
Yeah, so this is just for instructors. This is a biology assignment. Our students have told us the gauntlet is anatomy and physiology for our nursing program. And so the students have done the experiment and they're supposed to write a lab report, which easily could be outsourced to AI. So I'm writing, I need help adding friction to this assessment. The first part walks you through what friction and how it's going to work. And it's going to ask, like it did with the other bot, what's the primary learning goal you want this kind of scaffolded lesson to appeal to? I'm looking for my typing, and it says explaining biological mechanisms. And please don't ask me about the biological mechanisms. I had a colleague look it over to make sure it was legit, but I haven't taken biology in many, many years. So it says that gives us an anchor. Students should explain how changes in temperature and things I don't understand happen. And it talks about how that learning could disappear, how a student could just put this into an LLM, get the report. Do I want to see options? And I said, yes. And so it breaks down 3 distinct approaches that I could take to ensure student thinking is visible in this process. So, what they could do before lab, a 1-page causal diagram written by hand, data point defense, and it gets into that. I don't need me to read to you, it's all right here.
Mm.
Completing the mechanism challenge, ways to have them collaborate with others. So, again, this is just a brainstorming partner because clearly I don't understand the assignment. I haven't taken that biology course, but it's just a place to begin this process of stretching out the assignment to actually witness the thinking unfold.
This is just wonderful. And one of the things that I've really appreciated about this moment too is that it has given us a lot of opportunity to talk to other faculty members across disciplines and see what tactics have worked for them based on the important elements of not only the subject that they're teaching, but the way that they hope that students interact with them in the classroom. And that's something that's very close to our mission as well. And what I want to do now is share another version of one of these tools. This is one that we've built internally at Edvisor. And as I said, my brief is really to make sure that there's proper learning science behind all of the tools that we build. And so this redesigning tool, in much the same spirit as Susan's, provides a number of different observations about where your assignment might be vulnerable to AI, and then makes recommendations based on both canonical teaching and learning publications, but also on a lot of more recent things that have been found in recent experimentation. Some of them, again, far from conclusive, but directionally interesting. Um, and the idea is not that it's an opportunity to find an opportunity to use AI at every possible turn, but rather to say, here's how you might redesign something based on the details of your classroom. And I just want to give us all an example that a faculty member shared with me. This is a live issue, so they said this is something I'm redesigning right now. Um, I'm not exactly sure uh, what this might be for, but you can upload, you can say this is for my marketing class. This is a hybrid course and it has 50 to 100 people in it. And one of the things that I think is important, hallucinations are going down, but we really wanted to make something. This is both on the back end for our team and then also for this public facing tool that we invite you to use, um, is to make sure that we're actually really tied to those best teaching and learning practices and not allowing the LLM to go out and create something. So this is something that's very contained and limited to the things that we've decided are important. You'll get an AI vulnerability general assessment, and many of them you'll find are either moderate or highly vulnerable, and which is the case. There are some that you'll find, especially for in-person classes, that are less so. But the written portion obviously is fairly easy to outsource to a chatbot. Um, in order to see the full redesign, you'll just click through. And then I will open up. Again, this is all specific to your individual assignments. Um, and you can go through as many as you like. We like to say if you need to change only one thing, this is what we recommend. Be prepared to explain a note in a structured, graded oral defense where you can actually speak with the student. And then looking at specific publications that have explored this and found, again, either conclusively from a statistical point of view or directionally based on this emerging research. And then as we reopen, you'll get the entire assignment, change one thing. This is your redesigned assignment as suggested. Um, and then um, some of the scientific references that you can go and explore on your own to say, is this something that I want to understand a little bit more intricately? Or are these just some of the new discoveries that researchers have found in their implementation of AI? And of course, things like the cognitive impact of ChatGPT in higher ed. These are this question of critical thinking is one, and critical thinking and creativity are especially important to me, thinking about artistic production, and just maintaining a sense of creativity through all of our students. It's essential for any field, of course. Um, so I'm happy to go through, Susan. I don't know if we want to take another live assignment and go through one of your tools as well, and we can see how that plays out just to make it accessible.
Sure, absolutely. And if anyone has an assignment on hand as like a PDF, please feel free to put it in the chat and I can take it through one of the assignment rebuilders.
Let me see if I can pull one up for you.
And it's been, like, I love what GP said about collaborating with faculty in different disciplines. Like I recently did something for the HBCU, like how to guide faculty in AI when it came to first year math. And it's been a long time since I touched first year math. So I got to, yeah, work with a graduate student at Villanova who leads their math support center. And it's just a really interesting moment where we get to kind of support each other and learn what everybody else is doing because we know academia can be very siloed.
Susan, let me share one with you directly in the chat,
Sure.
and you can enter it into your tool and share your screen.
And I answered a couple of questions that came through in the chat. Please feel free to continue submitting them. And you can also email me. I can put my email up as well. But yeah, if you haven't picked up on it, I'm very enthusiastic about this stuff. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or share any materials I've come across. Okay. So 3 tips. Good. All right. Load PDF and I will share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to, one thing I'm not as savvy in as large language models is Zoom, but I'm getting there. Okay.
It's a moving target,
So
to be sure.
it is. Can everyone see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
So GP was kind enough to share this assessment. I'm going to go, is this the assignments? Is this correct?
I think it is just the just this top here.
This is
Uh,
top part. Okay,
yeah.
so I'll copy that. And I will go back to this is the assignment rebuilder with no AI. So I might just say, I want to redesign an existing assignment. It's already a question that's there. And I've set up the chatbot, so we'll always start out with the definition of it's called productive friction, or I've heard it called AI aware teaching. It's just this kind of scaffolded approach that makes the outsourcing um, less tempting. And so it tells you your part is to bring the assignment, share your discipline, class size, modality. Is it an online class, hybrid class, and the bot, and push back on what the bot says. That's important. So you get to what you're looking for, not just settling on whatever it lands on. So here's the assignment. I'll have typos, it doesn't care. My in-person course, I'll say of 30 students. And there's the assignment that GP shared. And this is the part that I cut out in my video because sometimes it takes longer than not to think things through. And it says, thanks for giving me the full starting point. Here's our path. What should students be able to do that goes beyond finding and summarizing information about an event? And again, I have not taught hospitality, but I will say applying it in their future careers. And we'll see what the bot comes up with. And so professional judgment, it gave me a much better phrase for that. And then it's going to ask me more specifics before it offers how to scaffold it. So evaluate an event's impacts or recommend next steps. And you will find if you use Boodlebox, it runs even a bit slower than ChatGPT, but I find, again, a lot of people prefer it because it does use less energy, less tokens, and it is FERPA protected. But ChatGPT, I find, especially with students in the short attention span, it's much quicker. Okay, and so it goes over the specifics. The learning goal is now clear. Students should evaluate an event's impacts and recommend defensible next steps for professional practice. Here's where that thinking could disappear, the current assignment. So it shows us the holes that where a student could just kind of plug it to one of the things that's advertised to them. And I will say, I don't tell anyone to get TikTok accounts, but if you have one, start looking at the algorithms that hit our undergraduates because it's just predatory. But it says, more importantly, the assignment asks students to identify and communicate impacts, but your intended career skill is to recommend action, and it's going to start unfolding. So I don't want to take up too much more of the time, but again, it's going to walk you slowly through to figure out what you're trying to achieve and ways that you can do that. And we'll even talk to you about, the time investment you have, because you're having every student, I will say from experience, make a 15-minute interview. That's a lot of your time to go through and
Yep,
evaluate.
it certainly is.
Let's stop sharing.
Incidentally, I will share that one of the tools that we've built that we're experimenting with faculty with is actually basically an in-assignment oral defense feature where once the student submits a written assignment, then the platform reads what they've submitted and then generates a net new set of questions that they need to then get on camera to answer, more
Nice.
or less immediately. And of course, there are considerations about accessibility there. Those are things that, we design for as well. But I think that the idea is that we want students knowing that they will be consulting with these different tools to be able to internalize the argument and to defend their rhetorical decisions. Um, we've seen that once they realize that they are getting a follow-up that they have to actually speak to, the deer in headlights look sometimes spans the entire response, but the next time around they're much more prepared because they
Mm-hmm.
know that rigor requires them, like I say, to be able to describe why they chose this source instead of this source, or to say
Yeah.
what would change about your argument if we altered this core premise that's underlying your conclusion. So really trying to practice not only the kind of spoken rhetorical communication skills that we know are needed for whatever field they
Mm-hmm.
might be in, but also to think about those learning design principles like transfer, where we say you've taken this
Yeah.
thing that you've learned and then are applying it to a new situation. And that has really helped some faculty say, I don't have time to interview all of my 50 students, but if they can get shorter formative feedback on
Mm-hmm.
their ability to respond to something written, then that can help them throughout the class, regardless of what the final looks like. Um, Brilliant. Anne is asking, I just have access to ChatGPT free. Do you think your ad frictions will work there as well? It should, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes. So with the ChatGPT, you just need a paid subscription to create the chatbots. The free subscription will work for quite a while. If you're uploading a lot of PDFs, like it will eventually say, like basically like at a carnival, you're out of tokens, but you just wait a little bit and it will let you continue.
And one thing that I do recommend to faculty members who are using these tools is even though we might not want to support the LLMs, and different LLMs are doing different kinds of work, but usually if you're paying for a subscription, you actually have greater control over the way that your data is managed. And so
Hmm.
paying for that $20 a month subscription means that you can say, I don't want you to retrain on the data that I'm sending you, and that for many of us is an important feature. Um, okay. We have more of a little bit more time. I would love to address any questions people have if they want to drop them into the chat, but I do hope that this little tour of some tools can be of service to people as they're actually going about the work of redesigning classes for the fall. Joan asks about Claude for teachers, which this is a really good question. I was actually just reviewing some of the conversations that Claude for Teachers had with the Learning Commons team. This is more for the sort of K-12 data layer, saying what are the best, curricular benchmarks that we want to make sure that Claude is using. And we at Edvisor use a lot of the same principles on that Claude for Teachers, which is to say, instead of just saying, here's like the overall rubric that we want to share with an LLM, we actually break down what individual skills embedded in that rubric are and have the LLM make more up or down decisions about whether certain things are satisfied. And one of the reasons for this is that they can be very variable. So you could put the same assignment in twice and that get different responses coming back out.
Hmm.
We want to find ways of reducing that variability so that it can perform the recommendations for assignments or for grading can perform more consistently between runs of the same assignment, for example.
Hmm.
Um, I think Claude for Teachers is going to be great for higher ed eventually. For the moment, it's really focused on the K-12 space and those sort of like core curricular assessments. Um,
When I'm having like a pedagogical debate with an AI, and I'll share that sometimes I'll be in the hammock in the backyard. I have paid Claude and ChatGPT and have my earbuds in and start, to ask it to challenge me on an assignment and approach. Claude find is the superior, mainstream LLM when it comes to like philosophical, pedagogical, kind of academic discussion. So when it's something I want to understand that's technical, ChatGPT is my best friend. I'll say, break it down for me like I'm 12, which my 12-year-olds find very offensive.
Um, two things I wanted to add. Google has actually been experimenting with what they call small language models, and they found those to be very effective for specific subjects. And so I'm just sharing that. They've published some really interesting research on the effectiveness of small language models for teaching particular math courses, for example. And I just want to highlight that for some faculty. That increasingly, instead of using that big blunt tool that is the frontier ChatGPT or the frontier Claude, I think that we should be more mindful of those more focused kinds of tools or models that are coming out that are more
Mhm.
appropriate to our particular discipline or certainly to teaching rather than for general use. And the other thing I wanted to flag, Jen, one of our institutional partners from Golden Gate University, caught me saying that we are experimenting with oral defense. Edvisor is fully implemented at Golden Gate University, an institutional partner. So this is something that faculty are actively using in their classrooms to good
Nice.
effect. Go
If
ahead,
I could
Susan.
jump in on Marcia's great question. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Yeah, absolutely. There's more work in creating scaffolded assignments. I used to teach four major essays in Comp One, and I now teach three. And I had a colleague saying, "You're not teaching them compare and contrast." And I've just decided, well, yes, I've gotten rid of compare and contrast, but I'm witnessing their thinking. They seem more invested and there's much less outsourcing. So it's a trade that I've decided to make. And some assignments like have a conversation with this chatbot, like I created a Socratic thesis chatbot that would challenge them about their thesis statement. And sharing that transcript, I told them this is really an all or nothing. assignment, meaning I'm going to look through it. Did you, you know, give it the good try? I don't care about grammar and spelling. This is about you just showing me your thinking. And if you did, it's full credit. So it's about making those decisions because again, it has to be manageable, right? We don't want to be grading, morning, noon till I can speak dusk till dawn. But so it is a trade that every faculty member has to figure out what works for them.
This is a great point. And thank you, Marcia, yeah, for sharing that. One of the really exciting parts of my work right now is thinking about, in dividing, redesigning an individual assessment can, like you say, be really taxing. One of the possibilities that we have, especially with schools that have a broader sort of portrait of a graduate or program level outcomes that we're driving towards, is that can help us, that kind of information can help us in a really agile way redesign specific classes and even specific assignments to be feeding up more directly into that program level outcome from the course level outcome. So I love that possibility. Again, not to say that we want to replace any of the in-classroom interactions that are existing with faculty and students, but to say, can we design these assessments in a way that takes into account program level outcomes in a way that I would never be able to if I was sitting down just saying like what did they have to do for this assignment, connecting them back up to that sort of horizon level goal is a
Mm-hmm.
kind of support that I think some of these tools can help us with.
Yeah, and based on that, one thing I would suggest if you have your dean or your admin's ear, advocate for time,
Mm.
whether it's course release or smaller classes or professional development where you're not going through so many sessions, but there's just time to kind of maybe someone speaks and leads a workshop, but then you just have time to focus on it. Because even these amazing tools, faculty needs time, right, to dig in and to make them fit, and that often seems to be the missing step in uh, this moment.
Well, such great advice from someone who has done this for so many different faculty members through your work supporting them in the consulting. Um, Susan, we really appreciate you taking the time. I know that you are in a lovely place with nature behind you, so I want to make sure that you can get back to enjoy that, and also want to give all of our attendees a breath before the turn of the hour, or to the half hour, I suppose. Just to say thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope this was helpful for you, Jeffrey and Helena. I do hope this was helpful for you. We will follow up with all of these tools so that you can experiment with them yourselves. And both of us, of course, would be delighted to hear from you to continue this conversation. Um, One last plug is that I know, Susan mentioned some other great colleagues, including folks like Patrick Dempsey. We're going to see if we can get um, other great leaders within the space to join us for these conversations. So if that is you in attendance, then please reach out. We'd love to hear what your perspectives are and to have you come on and join us and share the way that you're experimenting with these tools in your class and your colleges as well. Um, Susan, thank you. I'll give you
Thank you for having me.
Yes, totally a pleasure. And with that, I'll close honorably and say looking forward to being in touch with anyone who's interested. Bye now.
Happy end of summer, everybody. Bye.